I'd just like to mention what the Chinese President Xi Jinping said in Davos in January on protectionism. That pursuing protectionism is just like locking oneself in a dark room. While wind and rain may be kept outside, so are light and air. No one will emerge as a winner in a trade war. I want to start with Karen Cook. What kind of feedback have you seen from your clients so far?
There clearly is increased protectionism, right? There's increased protectionism in the US, there's increased protectionism in the UK. There's regulatory change in the US, there's tax change in the US, there's the UK thinking of strengthening the takeover rules in the legislation to protect UK companies. And I think that does feed into M&A.
I think that we've seen an increased level of rhetoric on these issues, which to me what's interesting is that it, traditionally a staple of Southern Europe, it is spreading. And frankly, it's everywhere in the world, but by definition it is in Northern Europe and indeed in the UK, which I've always thought was one of the most open markets anyway.
I think the UK has had a very open environment. And relative to most other places in the world, we still are relatively open. I think a lot of issues are untested. So although I think the mood compared to 12 months ago is certainly more protectionist than it was, and we're starting to see elements being adjusted around the code, I think many of these things have not really been tested yet.
This government wants to have broader remit, more protectionism, then they ought to introduce it through legislation, not try and do it through the back door on takeover rules, because I think the takeover rules broadly work. That's a personal view.
I think that the US companies still find Europe to be a very appealing marketplace. It's a big market. It's got good rule of law. It respects intellectual property. A few years ago, everyone was talking about BRIC. It was going to be Brazil, Russia, India, China. If you made big investments in Brazil and Russia over the last few years, you probably aren't that happy. India, China, hard markets to get in and actually control the companies. So I think the US companies are still very interested in Europe. I think vice versa. The European companies are still very interested in the US.
In recent years, it has become more complex to get deals done, no matter whether or not they are hostile or friendly. It's not just about shareholder value, which it used to be 10 years ago. It was all about the valuation, the competition, and then you got the deal done, right? But we live in an environment where it's beyond that. It's dealing with currency fluctuations, dealing with regulators who are becoming more interventionist in selected industries, and then dealing with the political sellability of what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all my panelists for taking part in our Global M&A Summit.